Hi everyone. Okay, here we go, the long-awaited bag charm tutorial. These aren't actually as difficult as perhaps they look. The most difficult bit, I suppose, or at least the fiddliest bit, is going to be getting this looming the chain in here, but I'll show you how to do that as well. We're going to need a few things before you can get started. First of all, we're going to need some of this chain here. And of course we'll have to collect our beads and charms and all the findings. So let me get these out the way and then we can go through all the bits and pieces that we're going to need. Okay, first thing you're going to need is of course some cup chain, which is this stuff. This is 4mm rhinestone cup chain. You can buy it in various sizes, but I tend to find the 4mm works best in the Rainbow Loom designs. It's sold usually by the ½ metre, so in 50cm lengths, but it's easy enough to cut, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So we need that, and of course we need our Rainbow Loom bands. I'm going to use the metallic white from the mixed metallic pack and the frost for this one. Then we need our charms and our findings. So we're going to need, of course, one of these spring clips like this to attach, so we can attach it to our bag. And just a split ring, which you can say splits like that, and it's going to let us thread all our things on. And then you need beads and charms. You can attach pretty much whatever you like. A big bag of beads, you can use whatever you want. So I've picked a few out of there for today, and a large heart charm which I've decided to use, which is this little Winnie the Pooh charm here. Well, charm. It's actually a little compact. It's got Winnie the Pooh on that side, and we've got Eeyore on that side. So I just thought it was cute, and I thought I'd incorporate it into something. It does actually open up, and it's a little compact mirror inside, so I'm going to use that. So that's going to be the main charm, and then of course we need some beads and what have you. So I've chosen my beads here that I'm going to attach. Okay. This is just a little crystal clay bead. You can buy these from most craft shops, hobby stores, that sort of thing. These are spacer beads. I'm just going to use one of those to sit between those two. And this large pink bead, which I chose because it matched that rather well. And another little, just an ordinary little pink pearl. Nothing fancy. Now, to attach these, we're going to need some head pins and these are head pins. Okay. They just have a little, like a dressmaker's pin head on them, and you can thread your beads onto those. And then we just snip off what we don't use and bend the end over. So we'll need some of those. And oops-a-daisy. We're also going to need an eye pin. Now, the only difference between an eye pin and head pin is the eye pin has this little ring already on the end of it, which is going to allow us to hang something off the bottom of it. Okay? If you don't have eye pins and you only have head pins, you can make an eye pin out of a head pin by just snipping the head off and bending the end over. We're going to use eye pins and head pins. Okay, again, they can be bought in most places. Most craft stores sell them. If you can't find them in a craft store, they're readily available online. Then we're going to need some jump rings so we can attach these things properly. I use 2 sizes of jump ring to do these. I'm going to use these little 4mm jump rings, which are these here, these small ones. Okay, and these here, which are 8mm jump rings. Okay, very tiny, camera doesn't like focusing on those. So, all a jump ring is a little ring of metal with a split nip, which we can just bend apart to thread things onto. So we're going to need a few of those. So let's get those ready over there. Now, to finish off, because of course we don't want to use C-clips on our bag charm, you'll need some beads or spacer beads or something that you can get effectively 2 bands through. So something with a relatively large hole, because we're going to thread both ends like we did on this Harry Potter charm with a bead or a spacer bead. I'm going to use spacer beads for this one, but as I say, you can use whatever you like as long as you can get, as I say, effectively 2 bands through it, because we're going to be threading the ends through. Okay, that just makes it nice and neat and holds it all in place, especially, you know, keeps the chain in at the bottom so it doesn't pop out. As I say, I'm going to use, somewhere in here, I'm going to use these spacer beads. So we can get our bands through that easily enough. We want one for the top and one for the bottom. You can, as I say, use these little silver beads. It depends what type of bands you're using. The LE bands are, of course, harder to pull through. If you're using regular opaque or any of the thinner bands, they'll pull through much more easily. Other things you can use, again, are these sort of spacer beads, which have got quite a large hole in them. They're quite flat, but you can double them up and use 2 at once. So, then I'm going to need a charm to sit right on the end of it, because I like having something on the end. This one's got a little blue glass heart on it to match the blue glass bead. I'm just going to use an ordinary little silver heart charm to go on the end of that. And then just some basic tools, really. Of course, we're going to need our... I would recommend using a double-ended crochet hook to do this, because switching hooks when you're trying to loom the chain in is tricky. So I would definitely recommend a double-ended hook. And you'll need your rainbow loom hook as well. The only thing we're going to use this for is holding bands, but it's got a nice deep hook on it, so it's much more secure. So you'll need one of those. Then we're going to need a couple of pairs of pliers. These are little jewellery pliers. The pincers on them are completely round and completely smooth. That's what we're going to use to bend the head pins, so we can get a nice circle. And these are just ordinary small bullnose pliers with a cutter in there. and that's what we're going to use to cut the head pins with. And of course, just an ordinary pair of scissors. Okay, I think that's all the materials we're going to need. Oh, apart from one little piece of wire, or something that you can use to thread your spacer beads onto the end of your loomed cup chain. So wire, beading thread, anything that you can thread through the bands and pull a bead through. Okay, so now we've been through all that, let's actually get started on some looming. Let's get all these bits and pieces out of the way for the moment. First thing we need to do is cut our cup chain to the right length. For all these bag charms I use 12 stones, which I think makes them a nice enough length. They're not too long that they get in the way. So, easy enough. Just count 12 stones from your end of your chain, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. And that little gap in the middle there is where we're going to cut. You can cut this with ordinary scissors. That little bit of metal is, as you can see, very soft. So, put that bit to one side, and then we have 12 little rhinestones on our chain. Okay, now to loom. I'm going to use my Circe design for this, which is the same pattern that's on this one. Okay. This holds the cup chain nicely and isn't too chunky. It's not too wide. And it keeps the cup chain all nicely covered at the back as well. So, we're going to take our first colour, which for me is going to be white, and make a cap band. Then we're going to take our centre colour, which I'm using the frost for, and just pull that through our cap band like that. Okay, and then we're just going to come over and pick up this side of the cap band and close that band off. Okay, take another white band, pop that on your hook, and then we're going to take these two loops over onto this band like that. Then we're going to leave that cap band down there and just pick up that centre one and close it off like that. Turn your hook around and pop that all the way up the other end, and we're going to do the same to this side. So just slide this loop off for a sec and pick up the other end of your cap band and close that off again. Take another white band, and again we're going to do the same as we did on the other side, so pull that through two loops, leave that cap band down there, pick up your centre loop and close your new one. Okay, so now we should have 6 loops on our hook. Then we're going to take another centre band and we're going to pull that through everything we've got on the hook. Okay, all 6 loops. Okay, so that's all 6, and all we do is pick up the white ones. So that's 1, skip that centre band we added before, pick up the 2 middle ones, skip the next one, pick up the outside one, and close that one. So the 4 bands we just picked up are now not focusing. There you go. are now sat in the middle of that centre band we just added. Then we're going to add 2 more of our white bands, 1 to each side. But this time we're going to take this white band through these 3. Okay, so half the loops on your hook. Pop your white band on there, and then we're going to pull this one through 3 loops. Okay, like that. And then we're going to reclaim the outside too. So, skip that one, pick up the white one and the centre one, and close your new one. Okay, now turn your hook around, and we're going to do the same to the other side. White band on our hook again, and we've got these 3 loops here. We're going to pull our white band through these 3. Okay, so through 3, and we're not going to pick up that one there. I'm just going to pick up the 2 outside ones and close that new one. Okay, so now comes the tricky bit. We're going to add the first stone of our chain. If you've watched my very first tutorial on adding cup chain, you probably know what's coming. So, I'm going to get hold of our cup chain, our little 12 stone length of chain that we cut earlier on, and our trusty rainbow loom hook, because we're going to need to use this to hold bands. Now, on your hook, you have 8 loops. We are going to split this in half, like that, and we're going to take half the loops off and hold them on our rainbow loom hook. So, easiest way is to pull it down like that, and pop your rainbow loom hook into the first 4, like that. Hold on to the other 4, and then we're just going to lift those off so they separate like that, leaving this centre band here that you can see. That centre band is where we're going to put our first rhinestone. So hopefully I can show you this. Okay. A little gap here in the middle of that centre band. And we're just going to push the first stone into that gap like that, so it sits in the middle of the band. Okay, now you should just be able to very gently let that go, making sure your bands don't pop off your hook. There we go. And that should stay there long enough for us to get the next band on. Our next band is centre band, so for me that's frost. And we're just going to thread, oh, you can't see that, can you? Okay. To get the next band on, we're actually going to have to thread it through the chain like that. So feed your band up the chain, so it's actually, the chain sits through your new centre band. Then we're going to attach one side of it to our rainbow loom hook, the other side of it to our crochet hook. Okay, now where we want this band to sit is of course in between these rhinestones, so we want it to go in the next gap. So push that down there, excuse me, and get it to sit in the next gap in the chain. Once it's there, just hold that, pinch that with your thumb and forefinger, and take your rainbow loom hook. Make sure that new band's firmly in the hook, and we're going to pull it through all 4 loops here, okay? So, there we go. Twist that and pull it through all 4. So all 4 loops are now on that new band, and we're going to do the same on this side. So take your crochet hook and again pull that band through all four. So all you should have on your hook, or both hooks, is that center band we just threaded up. Okay? Then we need to pick up, so, the white bands. Use your crochet hook to do this because it needs to end up on this hook. So pick up one, skip the next two, pick up the two middle ones, skip the next two, pick up the last white one, and then just pop that new center band off your rainbow loom hook onto your crochet hook. Okay, and there we have our two little rhinestones. Okay, I did that so slowly that I actually popped that one out of order. So let's just put that back. There we go. Okay, so now we have two stones in there like that. So now we need to add, we had just added our center band, so now we're going to add white bands. One each side again, as before. White band on your hook, and we're going to take that through the first 3 loops. It should be 1 loop of your center band and 2 loops from the side. So pull that through 3 like that. Skip that white one, and we're just going to pick up the outside 2 loops. It should be 1 white band and that loop of your center band, and close that new one. Turn your hook round and push that all the way up the other end, and do the same thing again. So another white band through 3 loops like that, and pick up the outside 2. There we go. Turn your hook around, because, well, you don't have to turn your hook around at this point, but I find it's easier to work from what effectively will be the front, because it's easier to line up our center band in the middle of the rhinestones. So turn it around again, pop it all the way up there, and then we need to add another center band. To do that, we're going to have to divide our design off again, which means getting hold of our rainbow loom hook. And again, we have 8 loops on our hook, so we're going to divide those in half, 4 each side. These 4 here I'm going to leave on my crochet hook, and these 4 over here I'm going to take over and hold onto my rainbow loom hook. So again, pull that down and pop your rainbow loom hook through the first 4 loops on your crochet hook. Make sure they're secure and just lift them off like that, and hold them off to one side. As you can see, we can now get at our cup chain. So take another center band and thread that again through your cup chain like that. At least thread your cup chain through the band. Pop one side onto your rainbow loom hook like that, and pop the other side onto your crochet hook so the band is stretched across the 2 hooks. Find the next gap in your chain and make sure that sits in it like that. Pinch those together in the center just to keep them there and put some tension on that band. And using your rainbow loom hook, pull that band through all 4 loops like that. Now over to the other side and do the same with your crochet hook. So pull that band through all 4 loops like that. And then we've just got to pick up these white bands. So we're going to pick up the first one, skip the next 2 bands, pick up the 2 middle white ones, skip the next 2, pick up the outside white one, and close with this new center band we just added by taking that off your rainbow loom hook and back onto your crochet hook. Okay, and then we're back to 6 loops and we've encased our 3rd rhinestone. Okay, I'll do that one more time and then I'm going to leave you guys to pause the video and finish the length of your chain. So, now we're back to adding our side bands, which for me are white, so 2 more white ones. And we'll put a white band on our hook, and again we have 6 loops, so we're going to pull that through 3 of them. Through those 3, and pick up the outside 2 loops. So leave this one here, we're not going to pick this one up at all. Pick up the outside 2 and close your new one. Okay, turn that round, pop that all the way up the other end of your hook, and we're going to do the same thing. Another white band, which we're going to take through these 3 loops here. So through 3, skip this one and just pick up those outside 2 loops and close your new one. Turn your hook around and pop it all the way up the other end so you have your cup chain facing you, like that. And then we need to divide, oops daisy, we need to divide the design up again. So 8 loops on our hook, we're going to divide into 4. So rainbow loom hook through the first 4 loops, lift those off your crochet hook and make sure they're tucked in. Okay, and then I'm just going to hold those like that so again we can get at our cup chain. Take another center band and thread our cup chain through the middle of that band like that. Put one side of that band on your rainbow loom hook. Put the other side on your crochet hook so it's stretched between the 2 hooks. We're just going to push that down a little bit so it sits in the next gap in the chain. Pinch that and hold on to it so it's not going to fall off. Then using your rainbow loom hook, pull that band we just added through all 4 of those loops like that. Then we're going to come over to this side and do the same thing again. Pinch hold of that with your other hand and we're going to pull that new band through all 4 loops just like that. So the only thing on each hook is that band that we just added, and again we're going to pick up our white bands. So we'll pick up the first one, skip the next 2, pick up the 2 middle white bands, skip the next 2, pick up that outside white loop, and lastly pop that new loop we just added back onto our crochet hook off our rainbow loom hook, which then brings us back to 6 bands on our hook. Okay, so that's how we get the cup chain in. You need to keep doing that until you get to the end of the chain. Once you reach the end of the chain and you've added your last center band, which will sit in this last gap in the chain here, you'll be at this stage with 6 loops on your hook. Okay? Simplest way to finish that off once you've done that is to pull a band through everything on your hook. Make sure that band is the same colour as your cap band. Okay? Just for consistency. So I used a white band, so I would finish off by pulling a white band through all 6 of these like that. Okay? But you don't want to do that just yet because you've got to go all the way to the end before you can do that. But that's how you finish it off. Okay? So, pause the video, and once you've reached the end of your cup chain and you've pulled your final band through, come back and I will show you how to add all the beads and bling, finish the ends off and put it all together. Alright, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, now that we've got our rhinestone chain with our bands around it, should have all 12 in there like that. We need to secure these. Now, we don't want to use C-clips on our bag charm because that would look kind of messy. So, we're going to need, as we discussed at the start, some beads or spacer beads or something with a hole big enough to get both these loops through here. I'm going to use these little spacer beads because they've got a reasonably decent sized hole in them. So we'll need 2 of those and some wire or beading thread or something that's going to let us pull the bands through. So I'm just going to pinch that and pull it off our hook. And take a little piece of wire, which you can just about see there, and pop that through those 2 loops like that. So that's on that piece of wire. And we're going to take one of our little spacer beads and thread that wire through the hole and pull it down and pull our band through it like that. Okay? And we can just take that piece of wire out of there. And now that's neatly finished off. Of course, on its own that's still going to come off. So what we need to do is add a jump ring. Okay? Now I want one of the smaller jump rings. These are the big jump rings. These are the 7mm ones, and these are the little 4mm. So we need a 4mm jump ring, which we're going to put through these 2 loops here, which is going to stop our spacer bead coming off. So, hold your jump ring. Now, to open up jump rings, we're going to hold on to it with our little jewellery pliers like that, and just twist it open like that. So now we've got a little gap there, and we can thread it through these 2 loops. So 1 and 2 like that. Okay, and then we can just close that up again. If you can't do it with your fingers, you can get another pair of pliers and just bend that back the other way to close it up like that. Now it's got a little jump ring through those 2 loops, which is going to stop our spacer bead working its way off. Then we need to do the same to the bottom. It's a little trickier because of course this band's crossed. Okay, but you want your piece of wire or beading thread or whatever it is you're using to pull the bead through. We'll do the same thing as we did to the top. So put that piece of wire through your cap band and hold it together. Take another one of your spacer beads or whatever you're using, thread it through the wire, and again pull that through there like that. Okay, now we do have 2 loops here which we're going to have to get a jump ring through. So let's take that wire out of the way and take another one of our smaller 4mm jump rings. Okay, now 4mm jump ring, and again we're just going to twist that and open it up like that. Okay, there you go. So it's got a little gap in it. Then we've got our 2 bands, well, 2 loops that we just pulled through. So we need to take that jump ring through one and through the other one. There we go. So again, that's secure, and that's what we're also going to hang our little heart charm off to. So once you've got that through the 2 loops, just take your jewellery pliers and bend that back to close it up. And then you can pull your spacer bead down a little bit too, just to even things out. And there we go. That is the rainbow loom component of our bag charm, all ready to go. The only thing we need to add is one of our bigger jump rings at the top, so we can put it on to our split ring. Okay, so 7mm jump ring. Again, just twist that open a little bit and just thread that smaller jump ring at the top onto it like that, and close it on up again. Okay, so there we go. Now we have our rainbow loom component. Okay, once we've got that, we can just set that to one side for a minute, and we can do the charm for the bottom. Okay, now this little charm's got a little loop at the top, but of course if we attach it to that jump ring it's going to sit sideways. So we're just going to need another little jump ring, again one of our smaller ones, so the 4mm, like that, and we're just going to pop that little jump ring onto the end of our little charm. Okay, so again just open your jump ring up and thread that onto there. Oops a daisy. Okay. Then before we close that jump ring up, we're just going to thread that onto there. Just drop that other side onto there, and then we can close that one up like that, and then we've got our little heart charm on the bottom there. So now that's complete and ready to go on to the bag charm. We can leave that off to one side and do our beads. Okay. So I'm going to start with a head pin. This has got, as we explained earlier, just a little loop at the bottom, which means I can hang something else off that. Okay. So, onto my head pin, I'm going to just simply thread my pink pearl that I chose and this large twisted pink bead. You can choose whatever you want, but we do need to leave enough at the top so we can bend this over. There's more than enough there, so all we need to do is cut that. I like to stick another bead on the top that I'm not going to use, just as a guide. So we need to cut this, so I'm going to use these pliers with the wire cutters on them and just pop that down to the top there and snip that bit off. Okay, that bit we don't want, we're just going to throw that bit away. Now we have this length here, so to bend this over we need to make it nice and round. Make sure your beads are sat right down the bottom. Take your jewellery pliers, which are completely round, and then we're just going to pinch this and roll it round. Sorry about that. Roll it round the tip of the pliers, and as the pliers are completely round, it will make a nice round circle for you. Okay. So now we have that. That's a little bit misshapen, we'd like that to sit up, so you just pop your pliers back in there and give it a little bend the other way. And then we have a neat little ring on the end that holds our beads on. Okay? So, once we've done that, we need to do the same thing but with our head pin. Okay, so take your head pin, which I say has just got a little flat silver head on it, and I'm going to pop a couple of beads on this, which I'm going to hang off the bottom of the one we just did. So that one there, and then I'm going to pop on one of my little spacer beads. And oops a daisy, that was almost. And then a smaller white bead that's just going to sit in there like that. Okay. And then again we need to trim this because this is far too long. So I'm going to trim this and leave a little bit at the end so I can turn that over again and make a loop. So cut that off like that. Take your jewellery pliers, and again we're just going to use the rounded tips of these. Oh, I think that's probably a bit long there. So we're going to cut a little bit more of that off. Don't want quite that much. There we go, that's better. Don't want a really huge loop, only one little one. And then we're going to take that and just, again, bend that round the very tip of the pliers to make that little ring there. Straighten it up, pop your pliers in and tip it and bend it the other way. And flatten it out. Okay, there we go. Because what we're going to do is we're going to attach this one to this one so it dangles. To do that, we're just going to need one of our smaller jump rings. So, take a small jump ring And again, we're just going to twist that to open it up like that. Okay, so we've got a gap in our jump ring again. And we're going to put that one, the first one we threaded up with the big beads on it on there. And the second smaller one we did, I'm going to put on there. And just close that jump ring up like that. And there we have it. Our little dangly beaded charm to go on our bag charm. Okay, for this to go on our bag charm, we're going to have to use one of our bigger jump rings, which we just need to thread, just need to pop through the end of this pin we bent over earlier on. So, take your large jump ring, and again, same thing as before, just twist that open, and thread it through the end of that, and close it up again. Oh, there we go, I didn't close that jump ring up enough, did I? Dear me. Okay, let's get that back on there. There we go. Now, make sure you close your jump rings up properly, unlike me who didn't and then it fell off. So, there we go. Now that's closed up properly. We've got our beads ready to go on our bag charm. So, this is where we're going to need our large split ring, our key ring, and our clip, of course our rainbow loom component, our beaded component, and of course my chosen Winnie the Pooh charm, because you're never too old for Disney, are you? Let's face it. So, take a split ring, and these are pretty self-explanatory, they just open up. And the first thing we want to do is put our bag clip onto it. So, let's just work that around like that. And there we go. Okay. Now, this clip doesn't swivel, so we want to make sure we get everything on the right way around. Okay. So, I want mine to sit like this. So the first one I'm going to put on is the one on the right here, which is my large charm. As that's already got a little piece of chain on it, I don't need to add anything to that. So I'm just going to thread that on the same way we did the clip. Just pop that through there and work it round like that. So then we've got our large Winnie the Pooh charm on there. Now I want the rainbow loom with the chain through it to sit in the middle, so that's going to be the next thing that I put on. Again, just widen that out and thread the large jump ring we added to the end onto there and work that round like that. And lastly, we're going to add our little beaded creation. So that one goes on there, and again just work that round to the end. And there you should have your finished bag charm. Okay, as I say, not as difficult as perhaps you thought, but there we go. You can add almost anything. You can add all sorts of beads and charms. You can adapt existing key rings by adding extra things to them. Anything you like. There are all sorts of different charms you can add, little cameos, different types of beads, roses, all sorts of things. It's up to you as to what you want your bag charm to look like. So, there we go. I hope you can follow all that. And if you do make a bag charm and post it on Instagram, please do tag me, because I would love to pop along and take a look. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Bye!